Welcome to the No Mercy Cobra Kai podcast. Fans of the TV series Cobra Kai, featured on YouTube Red. I'm Donna Harris, here with my special co-host, Mike Ferraro. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Donna.
I'm so glad you're here, and we're here to talk to all of you about episode number 2. Each week, I have a different co-host discuss an episode of Cobra Kai with me. This show was birthed from the 1984 film The Karate Kid. Mike, give me your fondest Karate Kid memory. But first, let everybody know how old you are now and how old you were when Karate Kid first made an impression on you.
So how old I am or how old I feel?
Oh, well, you can go both ways. That's fine.
So I feel about a decade younger than I actually am. But
That's great.
Yeah, I am about, it's been like that for some time. Now, if I could just get past the immaturity portion of that.
No.
No? Okay.
No, that's even better.
Does that make who I am? 37 years old now. I was born in 1980, so I was 4 upon release.
Yeah.
Of The Karate Kid, and I did see it in the theater.
You did?
Yeah, I do remember this. Now, that's not my fondest memory, though. My fondest memory, because I had seen it repetitively, and I think, man, when did we get our first VCR? It had to be 85,
yeah.
I guess, 86. So that was one of the first movies I think we rented. I mean, probably the first 20 movies we rented. I remember... because I guess I didn't catch, because I'm too young. You know, at 4, there's little nuances to the film, little mentionings in the film. I didn't realize that he was from New Jersey.
Okay.
And I was born in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So I found that to be so cool. I was like, whoa, this kid hit the big time. He's in California.
Yeah.
And he's from Jersey.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal to me. So I don't know. I just connected with him, with Ralph Macchio, with Daniel, because and the fact that he was a smaller guy.
Yeah.
I think he was longer. I mean, he was tall, but he looked small.
Mm-hmm.
They made him look small in the film, if he wasn't already. I was always small, so that was another thing. Like Michael J. Fox was like my favorite guy growing up because his name was Mike, and he was small. And he was famous, and we had very similar birthdays. His birthday's in June as well. But that he's from New Jersey and he's small. Those are the things.
And you're Italian.
And yes, thank you. But you're from New Jersey. I thought that was like a rite of passage. Like,
yeah.
You have to be Italian to be from New Jersey.
Right. Who's not Italian in New Jersey?
Right.
What are you doing here if you're not Italian?
Yeah, it's a waste of time.
Yeah. Oh, how fun. I love that. I love all the connections. So episode 2, it's called Strike First. And, when we look back at episode 1, I really thought of that as a day in the life of Johnny Lawrence, Mm-hmm. And when we start episode 2, you see like a really abbreviated, fast-forwarded version of that same thing for Daniel LaRusso. He wakes up and talk about Italian. This is the best episode to have you talk with me on. We've got Frank Sinatra starting it off. Ain't that a kick in the head?
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And
I'm sorry to correct you, Dean Martin.
It's Dean Martin?
Mm-hmm.
That is Dean Martin.
It is Dean Martin.
Oh my gosh.
Don't judge her.
You've got to take away my Italian card.
I just stamped it.
Oh. Anyway. But
they were close. They were best friends.
Yeah, that's right. They were all part of the Rat Pack.
Of course.
I mean,
could have been Sammy.
It could, yeah. Right. Exactly. If I would have thought it was Sammy, then you could have taken away my Italian card. Yeah, but I just love that music bed, and it shows Daniel's charmed life, sitting up in bed, beautiful wife, beautiful house, beautiful kids.
Perfection.
Yeah, handing them the breakfast. I mean, everything about it. The car, he's got fulfillment in his job. He's shaking hands. He may as well be kissing babies. I mean, all of it,
mm-hmm.
And I think we're all smiling right along with him because we love Ralph Macchio.
In a way. But I got to say, after that first episode.
Okay.
You almost get annoyed.
Okay.
Because you know where it's going. Now, I'm gonna preface everything I'm gonna say on this podcast and anything else I talk about this show with this show has a lot of cliche, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not a bad thing. I love the model. It's the nostalgia.
Yes.
Plus where this cliche is leading in so many ways. You're going to get the flip side from Daniel and Johnny. But you like that, and you're not... The uncomfortable, the awkward factor of this is that you're like, wait a second. why am I annoyed? This is the good guy.
Yeah.
And that is so cool.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. I think that's exactly what we've been thinking and feeling, but we haven't put words to it. That's exactly right. Because I think I'm wanting to keep saying, but I love Ralph Macchio.
But do you?
Right. Well, I mean, I don't want to talk too much about that episode before our previous episode 1, but
sure.
There is that time where he's like, I kicked him in the face. That's, everybody's like, oh.
Yeah, I was really like, saw that one coming.
Yeah. But you know what? I think we also enjoy a little bit of that switcheroo, the reversal of how we felt about these people. I talk about in episode 1 how we've really fleshed out Johnny Lawrence in the fact that we're starting to see this backstory. He's not just a caricature of a villain that we thought he was in The Karate Kid. He was just straight villain, right?
Absolutely.
We didn't give him a whole lot of thought that where did he come from and why is he this way?
It reminds me of, I was talking to someone about it today. It reminds me of a lot of Billy Bob Thornton movies.
Really?
Think about Bad News Bears and Bad Santa, right?
Okay.
He's supposed to be a certain way, but he's just like, for instance, Santa's supposed to be this jolly, happy, giving guy, but he's not. And in Bad News Bears, he's supposed to be the supportive trainer, manager, a mentor, and he's not.
Right.
And then you have Johnny. And a sensei is supposed to be kind of this formidable, not classy, but, almost like stone Buddha, like just, intense, but caring and virtuous and careful with their students and, what, and it's just like the bad version.
Yeah.
Kind of selfish, but heart of gold eventually, because we know that's probably coming.
Yeah.
Or, something's going to... You see how he look, and I don't want to jump ahead, but his first student shares some information. I'll tease that. And you kind of catch a familiarity in Johnny's eye and his visage. And there's something there.
Tell me what you're talking about when you say that Miguel is sharing what?
About the father.
Yeah. Yeah.
About that his deadbeat dad, I didn't grow up with a father.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, is it fair to say that? I mean, I don't know if he died, but I would assume he...
Yeah, he said, my dad was never around.
Right.
Yeah, and that pause meant something.
It hit.
Yeah.
It hit with Johnny, because you've already seen now what type of father figure he grew up with. Mm-hmm. The stepdad. Mm-hmm. Played by Ed Asner, which is awesome.
I know, everybody loves that.
Oh, it's such a wild cameo.
Yeah.
That's so random, and it's so awesome.
So awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He still got it, too. I mean, geez.
Yeah.
But it is that. And that's... I don't care how many times that's in a movie where someone catches familiarity from their past and their inner struggle. It never gets old.
No. And that's part of that nostalgia. Like,
right.
We connect with that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and just going back to a little bit of like the timeline of the episode, we did see Daniel's charmed life. We do wonder how much we like him as we walk through his fast forward version of a day in his life. And then it goes, and you see him see the dojo. And then it's like, dun dun dun. Mm-hmm. He's really that connects with him again, and that burning comes back up, like, that's my enemy.
What I love about that scene is how, and we're leaving something out, which is equally important to that scene. So when he sees that sign, instant memories. It shows all the clips from the first cry, which, may I say, it's awesome that they got the rights.
Yeah.
The rights to those. And the Iron Eagle scene with Johnny watching an episode. But anyhow, so the flashbacks are just as severe, intense, and important as Johnny's flashbacks when he's driving, right? And he sees all those flashbacks. And you realize both of these kids went through a lot of hard times early on.
Yeah.
Regardless, good and bad.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of, you feel bad for, like, man, you both made not bad decisions, but bad things happen to both of you. And let that be a lesson, everyone, that high school stays with you for the rest of your life.
Boy, doesn't it. I mean, I really think that, and we still continue to see that as we go through each episode. We're kind of like, it's 2018 and I still identify with all this stuff, even though I never had to deal with cyberbullying.
Absolutely.
You know?
And as much as I'd like to say that it's better now, some say it's worse.
Yeah.
I mean, it's with cyberbullying wasn't around.
Yeah.
Sure, there's more awareness, but that's always going to be there.
Yeah.
And it just makes you kind of sad that you're like, that's never going away.
Yeah.
And it's going to eat at you and create this inadequacy or
and I think it taps into just like how we love seeing those poignant pauses when Johnny hears from Miguel, I never had a father. It also taps into when we see these kids in high school and the same things are perpetuated. It's the fear we have for our children no matter what. We always think, oh, I don't want you to have to go through what I went through.
Right.
And it looks like you inevitably will.
The Mean Girls vibe.
Right.
Ugh.
Yeah. So let's keep moving through the timeline. Sure. You know, Johnny and Miguel have their first official lesson, which is part of what you're talking about. That's the whole strike first. I think that's where they're getting this title from. And I'm finding out that basically he's just going to emulate Kreese, right? It's just yelling, quiet, and address me as sensei. You know, he's establishing that right now. Let's relive all those high school days of the Cobra Kai dojo.
Right. And in a way, I already knew, I could tell it's just going to be sloppy from him, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to be Kreese. It's not going to be that. He doesn't want to be that.
Yes.
Because you saw in those flashes how damaging that was to him.
Yes.
So he doesn't want to be that. He wants to be his own thing, which he thinks he's better than he actually is. Don't get me wrong. You can tell he's skilled and he has the knowledge to be a good sensei. However, this like dichotomy between his lesson and Miyagi, or his teachings and Miyagi, all the cleaning.
Yeah, I loved it.
It's so, you're waiting. You're like, how do I do this?
Anyway, you want me to wash these windows, sensei?
No.
Nah.
I'm doing fine. Or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and I could tell right when he knew the kid was going to be like his maintenance helper, I'm like, oh, this is going to be just like it, but it's going to be from like that Billy Bob Thornton style of like, whatever. Yeah. And laughs it off, made some crude joke. And it just makes him a unique character, even though we kind of have a feeling of where it's headed for him. Obviously there's going to be some surprises along the way, but it's so unique for how, like I said, cliche it is. It's like its own thing. It's still new.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you said sloppy, like, and that you were intuitive to that, because I think that people who aren't, or they're not thinking of that consciously, I think that is part of what it is that, you know, I have this theory, or I have this connection with the fact that Johnny Lawrence loves the Cobra Kai principles. That he doesn't look at Kreese as a father figure per se, but he looked at what Cobra Kai did for him in high school and valued that and saw so much good in it. I really do believe that.
I do too. But he's not seeing his weaknesses.
Right.
What it caused.
Right.
What it became. Why he is where he's at. It's all because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, he lived some fast times real quick and lost it all. And I'll tell you what, it's even, and you brought up a great point, Kreese's father figure, that whole thing. That makes perfect sense of why he never, not that you would doubt your sensei ever, but everything Kreese said to him was law. And it's because he didn't have a father in his life. Mm-hmm. And he saw structure that he didn't have before, plus this structure that is bringing him these awesome skills, fighting ability, and fame and popularity and girls and whatever else.
Yeah, and self-esteem and all of that. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So why would he question it?
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah. I think that you understood what I was saying, except I feel like what I'm not communicating correctly is I think that there were so many times where Johnny in the Karate Kid, if you look closely, he did question Kreese, but he never wanted to question the process or the principles of Cobra Kai itself because he wanted to be part of that.
Right. I totally agree with that.
You know? And so his loyalty was to that.
Yes.
You know? And I think he rejected even, maybe not consciously, but he rejected the father figure of Kreese because, the dude grabbed him by the throat.
Right.
You know, he was abusive to him.
But that, keep in mind, that was after everything.
Mm-hmm.
That was the final straw, I believe. Like, that was because you saw something I'll tell you something that stuck with me with the original Karate Kid movie was Johnny congratulating him at the end. You deserved it, man. You know, like that. And I'm like, whoa. And that always stuck with me because he was such a jerk. And I'm like, he came around. He came around.
Right.
And Kreese recognized that weakness.
Got it.
You know, that's how my brain always works.
Yeah.
Because wasn't that scene at the beginning of Karate Kid Part 2?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. Because that was one of the first movies I'm like, it was a quick continuation, like right immediately from the last film. Like, that was so cool. I remember.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that was the first thing it did. Like, he looks at him as weak. He might have seen him congratulating Johnny. He lost.
Yeah.
And now he's getting choked out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And that's the final straw for Johnny.
Yeah.
You know?
But, you know, I just love really sitting on a lot of those and putting a lot of depth into the character of Johnny because, again, I think we for so long just built him up as a caricature of a villain and really didn't think about these things. I think even a lot of back in the 80s, we would have rationalized that away, that whole, oh, congratulations, you deserve it, that Johnny was saying to Daniel as kind of a way to just put a bow on it because that's just what you do in a lot of movies, right?
Right.
There was no intellectualizing that or there's no like psychology behind it.
Right. But Johnny is like, to me, growing up, you tell me, or you asked me before the age of 12, give me your top 5 villains.
Yeah.
And I didn't know really great film back then. Not that Karate Kid's not a great film, but it's an entertaining movie. You know, it's a popcorn flick. And it's a lot of nostalgia, a lot of fun. Johnny would have been a quintessential top 5 villain. He was the epitome of that bratty, what's the word, privileged, popular jerk in high school, like above all other movies. And I think it's furthered by his ability to provide violence, you know. So it was that much more believable when he thanked him, and it was that much more hitting for me that I'm like, whoa, he may have realized like how big of a jerk he was.
Had a heart change.
Had a heart change in that moment. And I think, I don't want to kind of stretch this, you know, theory too far, but I think maybe that was the start of where he got to now. He had nothing left, right? He had nothing left after that. After the choke out, he knew he was done. And then that was the start of just downhillsville, right? But you saw the heart of gold peek out. You're still seeing it now. That might have been the birth of the new Johnny right at that moment. Yeah. You know what I mean? He might not even realize it.
Yeah, I agree. The reason why I love what you're saying is because I am I subscribe to the idea that Johnny is a flawed hero, like through and through. That is where I rest with him, because I just see that there's a lot more redeeming qualities than we gave him credit for. You know, and as we learn more about his story, you're pulling for him.
Absolutely. And it's such a much more interesting hero. Yeah. Who wants, and again, going back to Ralph Macchio, he's had the storybook ending. Yeah. It's not interesting anymore. Yeah. What is interesting, and you're going to get into this soon, is everything going on in his life, his supporting cast. Yeah. That's going to have an effect on that squeaky clean image and past and present. Yeah. And things are going to get turned. I have a feeling that things are going to get turned upside down. And, right. And let me preface by saying, the listeners, I haven't seen past episode 2, so there's no way I could spoil anything for you. Right. I know Donna, are we making it known that you? Yeah. Okay. Donna's seen everything. I have not, so it's going to create a nice little balance here, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and speaking of Daniel LaRusso's life, we see that country
country club life that he lives, you know, and it just doesn't feel him, right? It's not Jersey Strong. He's not that's not really Daniel, I don't feel like. And so it's really weird to see him in this position. That and his punk kid, Anthony, you know, with the video games and the spoiled, rotten attitude. It just, there's something about all of it that you just grimace at everything that he's kind of going through.
Yeah. I don't know if you're like me. And I don't do this out loud, so I'm not that annoying. But in my own head, I try and figure out all the character angles as they're happening and it's still super exciting when I find out, even if I'm right. I love that. And it's part of, not even if it's a mystery, I just want to know what their angle is. They could be just a two-dimensional character and have no purpose other than being a bratty son, and it shows, you know, how different things are now, and that might be enough. But I look at this kid and I'm like, all right, he's not the quintessential popular archetype. You know, he's a little chubby, and, you know, he's video game and he's a brat. Maybe he gets picked on. Maybe he goes to Johnny's school, you know, or something like that. And I already can see all these possibilities happening. Again, it's enough if this kid is just a brat, and you know, Daniel has tried to raise these kids the right way. Yeah. Which even later on shows that flashback of him training his daughter. And you know, he's lived a good life. I mean, he's raised these kids. He's not a real jerk. Yeah. He's just kind of, you're tired of this. Yeah. It's not like he's an outright antagonist, but right. I mean, that's the same thing. It's like, just like Johnny Lawrence is the flawed hero, in my opinion. It's like nobody really wins, or nobody's really black or white, right? I think it's more of, you're going to find out that Daniel's more of the self-anointed hero. That he's like, but I'm the good guy. Yes. And when you think that way, you're not the good guy. You're not anymore. The good guy. Yeah. You just got to be who you are, and not anointing yourself the good one versus the bad one. And especially at this point in your life, when you've gotten everything and the person you're comparing yourself to has nothing. Yeah. Yeah. But you're not, that's the thing. It's also like that lack of awareness. Yes. You know, that you get annoyed with Daniel, because it's like, it is. You don't really see it where it's like, yeah, you look, you can't even say you look good, man. But he when he sees Johnny, he's like, you look good to see you. Well said. So you're aware, but you're not really aware to the point of empathy or connection. Real. Yeah, he's pretty aloof. Yeah. When it comes to, you know, how it is like that. It is that celebrity that you see a lot, that archetype, celebrity archetype, who came from small town USA and became this god, and all of a sudden they're like, or you're watching it and you're like, you know, he was a different kid growing up, and that's what celebrity does to you. But you just lose focus along, or what's the word I'm looking, I just drew a blank, but you lose that focus of who you were. Yeah. And words mean the same thing, right? So words like, I'm from Jersey. Yeah. That never leaves. And you can use that in anything. Hey, we're from Jersey. Yeah, Jersey strong. Jersey strong. That never leaves. But the real value of it is gone. He lost that somewhere else. Yeah, and I really think that that's what that scene is showing when he's at the country club. Right. You know, I think that's what it is. And there's little phrases here and there. He goes up to his wife, Amanda, and he's like, hey, when I was a kid, I was doing this, playing in the streets in Jersey. I wasn't worried about, you know. So and she repeats it. What do you mean? Or she talks over. Doesn't she talk over him and finishes his sentence? Oh, as if he said that over and over again? Yes. Yeah. And that's a great piece of information right there. Yeah. It's like he's like a record. He's like a salesman at home. Yeah. And I'd say even furthermore than the country club scene, the car dealership scene where Johnny comes in later, that is just as telling as him, if not more telling, because you see him in his element, and he's kind of in his element at the country club scene, but out of it because he doesn't know how to handle, like, his kid who's doing it. He doesn't know how to handle an old adversary that comes back that isn't even his adversary anymore.
Yeah.
But he's just so bothered by it and he doesn't know how to deal with it because everything's been good.
Yeah.
Everything's been given to him after that point.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure he's worked hard, but really everything's worked out for this guy.
Right. Although he got pretty, ruffled when Amanda said, "Oh, that pretty boy."
Right.
You know?
And that tells you he's still got those insecurities.
Yeah.
But he's covered them up with all these things.
Yeah.
In his dealership.
These things that are supposed to say, "I made it."
But did it.
Yeah, but did he? Yeah. And so, back at the dojo, that's where Johnny's using Miguel as his workhorse now.
Right.
And in that process, we learn that Miguel loves his mom. He never really had a dad. So we hear that. That's where we hear that poignant pause. And he has no clue what Guns N' Roses is.
That was great.
Isn't it?
That was such a great line.
I love all of those little connections.
The best.
In so many ways.
I want more of them.
Yes.
I know. I just want them to I don't care how old it would get to some people. I want that thing flooded with hilarious references where Johnny says one-line comments or gets annoyed or gets excited or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Iron Eagle, right?
That was great.
Yeah, it's all of that stuff where you're just like, thank you. I loved seeing that again.
Right.
Or I love hearing that that's so relevant still to all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The transition, too, from Gossett, Gossett's monologue about, like, on the tape or whatever, telling the pilot, like, I'm probably dead, or the whole thing, and then giving him those words of encouragement, just cutting right to Daniel's commercial. I mean, that again, as cliche as it might be, it's hilarious.
Yes.
And it works well in that place. It's so good.
Yeah, that comedy is so good for sure. And then after that, we've got the pool party that Sam has. How do you feel about it?
Well, let's talk about this. So the car wreck where they hit the car. Let's talk about. Can we go to that?
Go back to that.
Let's go back because I want to talk about the realization factor.
Yeah.
So as we know, Daniel's daughter's friend hits Johnny's car while he's checking out his old dojo outside of his car, and they do a hit and run, but not before he goes psycho outside their window and sees her face, and that's why he recognizes her at the dealership. Did you think they were going to have an interaction at the dealership?
No, I didn't anticipate that.
No, I mean, once you saw the daughter, did you think they would?
No.
No?
No, I was just taking it all in.
Oh, yeah? I was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Because I was thinking she's either going to see him and pretend she doesn't know him, and he is too, and they're going to give each other a knowing look.
Yeah.
Something like that. Or something bad's going to, like, say, that's the crazy guy.
That was I wonder if that was a misstep on the director-writer, like, thought process.
Again, you know what's happening in the future. I don't.
Yeah.
So I can only wait. Maybe something else happens that's
I mean, he saw, and he's like, you got to be kidding me.
Right.
So,
and he tried
there's
to
the
escape.
connection.
Yeah, he saw her, and he recognized her. She didn't recognize him, and there was no knowing look or mentioning or whatever.
Yeah.
It may have been a miss, but yet to see. So
yeah, but we were saying, with the pool party, you tied that in with the pool party.
So yes. So with the pool party, you kind of get this sense of obviously these kids that she's interested in, and she's obviously it looks like she's going to be the Elizabeth Shue archetype.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, the student's name. Miguel's.
Yeah, because we think of him as Rhea because he's been so beat up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it's Miguel.
Miguel. So he's going to be the macho archetype, and that's awesome. But then it's really interesting, and this is what I was talking about with the side characters in Machio's life, in Daniel's life, that it's really going to get flipped on its head because I think eventually he's going to realize that, oh my gosh, my kid's world is the world I couldn't stand. You know, back then, this boyfriend is, or quote unquote, could be boyfriend, would be boyfriend. I don't even think, are they boyfriend, girlfriend?
Well, I mean, in this episode, Kyler comes over.
He does, right, for dinner. Is
Yeah.
that so they're officially, okay.
Yeah.
And he's obviously one of the Johnny crew, even though he's not part of a dojo, he's still that D-bag,
Yeah.
archetype of, and I find that really interesting. I love when they just do these role reversals So people kind of get out of their comfort zones, regardless of themselves out of their comfort zone or close family members or friends that they see something familiar and they're like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and I think just in general, Cobra Kai, it really does so well with homages and twists and reversals. And that's a lot of what we're talking about. And so when we think, oh, this is going to look like this, it still gets flipped on its head. Right. You know, when you think, here's this archetype, I'm pretty sure it's going to play out like this. You never know how the reversal is going to happen because we've already seen it happen in just hints and places here and there. So,
well, the biggest one is still, I can't say this enough, is the feeling we get, and I'm sorry if anybody's in denial over this, but it's true. It's the feeling about Daniel. I think that is so brilliant. Like, I remember seeing the trailer for this show, and I'm sorry to kind of get it. Not this is not off topic, but it's off the episode. It's just kind of generalization. I remember seeing the trailer for this, and I got so excited, as you did. But in the middle, I'm like thinking to myself, "Oh my gosh, is Daniel the villain in this?" Because you could feel that sense.
Yeah.
Is Johnny the hero?
Yeah.
And I remember that was the pull.
Yeah.
Anything else could happen. You could have just that.
Yeah.
But they're doing so much more. They're just putting layers on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to beat a dead horse and keep using the word cliche, but I can't think it is. A lot of these things are cliche, but they're pieced together in such an interesting way.
Yeah.
That it feels original and a real great homage to the first film.
Yeah.
So
happy cliches.
Happy cliches.
I guess you could say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, at the pool party, that's where you're really starting to understand like the mean girl dynamic, and you're seeing Sam kind of get pulled into that world in some way.
But was she pulled in? See, that's what...
Well, we met Aisha, you know, that was her friend who was at the country club, and she's totally into science, and Daniel's wife says, you know, she's a nerd, and Sam doesn't want to be a nerd anymore. And so Amanda sympathizes with the fact that Samantha's trying to grow and look outside of her world that she used to be part of. But, yeah, I don't know.
How long ago? See, we don't. I like how, at least I don't right now, know how long she's been part of this world.
Yeah.
When she left that quote unquote nerd world.
To me, it seems fairly new.
Yeah.
You know, it's all fairly new. Like that, I think you see that at the country club where Aisha's like, you know, where's Sam been? And then mom covers for her, and she's like, she's with her grandma. But it's like,
good point.
You know, that's all kind of new. They're still like walking this road of trying to figure out what Sam is doing, who her new friends are.
Yeah.
And Daniel doesn't like that. And it's what you said before, where he's starting to see like these privileged kids. And I think he even mentions it at some point. I don't want my daughter to turn into one of these privileged Encino brats.
Right. And that
know?
I think it was in that pool scene or close to it. Maybe it was inside when they went inside.
Yeah, and they talk about it afterwards.
Popped out and about the bong rips. That was funny.
Yeah. Well, and that's where you're seeing the fact that these guys created like the Hot Tub Time Machine and Harold and Kumar. That's the creators of this series are the same creators. So you're seeing that same flavor occasionally,
absolutely,
which is so fun.
Well, they know what works.
Yeah, and you need, and that's where you love the dramedy aspect of it. You love to have that little bit of levity there.
Absolutely.
In the drama, it really carries it, so that
makes so much more sense.
Yeah,
now.
Yeah.
They just get it.
Yeah,
and that's the big thing, is getting it to do it right.
Right. And so, you know, through all that, you know, we've seen like how Sam's life is changing with her friends. And then Daniel, because of all of this, he's pining for a simpler time. He's remembering when she was little and he had karate lessons with her. Cute. So sweet. So sweet. And at the same time, he's like thinking of Mr. Miyagi. I just wish I had my sensei here to kind of give me a little bit of grounded sensibility. Really, because I think that he is lost with who he is now.
Right.
He's stuck between Jersey and Encino brats,
yep.
You know, and he wants his kid to be Jersey tough, but he also has placed her in a world where that doesn't make any sense. She didn't grow up in Jersey.
And are we forgetting the fact that he didn't have a father figure?
Right.
I mean, that's huge.
Right.
And now his father figure, and you can't tell me Miyagi wasn't his father figure.
Right.
Is now gone.
Yeah.
Who does he go to?
Yeah.
I mean, he's got his wife and family, which is great, but it's just not that same inner peace kind of assistance.
Yeah, really needing somebody to be a light post for him and give him some guidance.
Right, and not to mention people are forgetting the fact that I'm sorry to say this, but karate lets out a lot of aggression.
Yeah.
How long has it been since he's
been practicing?
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. So there's some of that too. Yeah. Where you see he's really desiring that again too. Even in that pining moment where he's thinking about Sam and the ways he trained her, he's like missing karate so much. Right. Yeah. And that pours into the next scene where Sam's chatting with her girls on the computer and they're talking about the car crash, and you can see how these girls are entitled, Encino brats, and they don't feel bad about the deer crash that happened. But Sam does vocalize that,
right?
And that's where you're really starting to see her character. She's, I don't know if I'm really meant to be hanging out with these girls. I don't know if I'm making the right decision, but she's sticking around.
It's pretty obvious, but how far has she gone, and can she come back?
Yeah,
that's really what it is. It's like, it's there. Obviously, it's there.
Yeah.
They make that evident. But how far in is she, and what's it going to take to get out, if she wants to get out?
Yeah.
Because we don't know.
Yeah. Well, and then it takes nothing, because within that scene, that moves quickly into Daniel coming into her room and just connecting with her and saying hi. And she opens up to him about Kyler and says, there's a guy I like. And that's part of the old Sam that he was used to. Sure. He's like, great, yes, I want you to, let me in on your world. And even though I may not like the idea that you're dating somebody, let's move this along so I can get to know this kid.
Right. And I love that. And that brings you back to, there's moments like that with him. Yeah, I just realized something myself, actually, was saying this. It's the times that he's with his family and you see he really cares and he's genuine, that he's that good guy again.
Yeah.
It's everything else that he's not.
Right.
Isn't that weird?
Right. Yeah.
It's so weird.
Right. Well, it's the push and pull of why we like this show so much.
No, I know. I know it's an angle that makes the show work, and it's just another element of why it's successful. But it's funny that I just realized that. I'm like, no, I did like him there. And then I thought about all the other moments I liked him, and I'm like, it's all family related stuff.
Oh, got it.
And not the other stuff, because all the other stuff is his dealership. It's him having beef with Johnny, which it's over.
Yeah.
And him being kind of a tool to Johnny in the dealership, and him at his dealership, and it's cheesy.
Yeah. And
he's on the billboards and he's the commercials, and it's just like, enough already.
Yeah.
But then you see him in his private time, and he's good old Daniel.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's a good point. Well, and later when we close out the show, I play a little game where we talk about who's hotter, and then we also do who won dojo points for this episode. Like if they go to the mat, when we talk about who's the person who you would say is the winner of this episode. And these are the things that we're kind of tallying up in our mind. Check, that's where you've gone through kind of a little check and balance system with Daniel, where you're thinking, no, he didn't. Oh, wait, yes, he did. He is kind of a good guy,
right. Tease from Donna, so you're going to want to stick around now. Because, Got to find out.
We want to find out, especially because Mike and I both weigh in, so see if we agree or disagree. So, moving along with the timeline at school, man, this is where we all resonate with what it feels like to be back in high school again. Miguel shows up, typical, you're at the cafeteria, where do I sit, right? And he's quickly informed by the two kids he sits with that Dimitri says, let me tell you, you sat at the wrong table. You're here with the nerds, and this is where you're going to be now.
And again, that equation, if you will, for a high school film always works.
Always works.
Always. I don't care how many movies I see where the new guy is kind of awkward, has to sit at the nerd table and pine over the popular, girls and tell them how it really is. Get them ready for real life at the high school. Never gets old.
Yeah.
Because they do it, especially these, now you mentioned those writers, they do it in an interesting way. And the dialogue's funny. Mm-hmm. And it's a little unique. Nothing was used before that I knew. And it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
I love
it. And we think that Dimitri, and I call him the little Woody Allen-ish character. Dimitri's the little nerd who's kind of negative. He's at the
He's on the end. He's not in the middle. He's not the sweatered one with the hair lip, right?
Okay. Yeah, he's the other one. And he's the one that's always kind of, we want to think he's speaking reality into Miguel, but he really is speaking a lot of negativity.
Yeah.
You know, he's kind of just like, let me give it to you straight, but it's really just a defeatist attitude.
Yeah, it is.
You know?
It's like nothing's going to get better for you because it hasn't for me. So
right.
Yeah.
Right. And so he's like, you might as well lay low. But if you notice in that moment, that's when, you know, they're looking at the popular girl table and Miguel looks over at Sam and he's like, you know what? I'm going to strike first.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been in that a few days.
Yeah.
And already.
Yeah.
So
ready to learn from his sensei.
That bodes well.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of strength. He's, you know, it didn't take, you know, to start his motor to gain the guts to do that.
Yeah.
It didn't take much. So that bodes well for the rest of the season and what he's going to be capable of doing.
Yeah. And it shows a lot of his heart and optimism.
Absolutely.
You know, because ultimately in the storyline, he does get shot down. That's when Kyler comes and sits over next to Sam and like, what are you doing, Rhea?
Right.
You know, but he made that effort. And
there was still that shared smile.
Yeah.
You caught that.
Right.
That wasn't fake.
Right.
You know, that was always going to be there.
Yeah.
And hopefully he caught a little bit of that and he knows that's something. He didn't dismiss it.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
I do want to make one point. I really love the middle kid because hair lips are so underused.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great. I'm not at all, if that was a real, you know, deformity on his face, fine. I'm just saying, you don't see that enough.
Yes.
Not that there needs to be an overabundance of that in
I
film.
get what you're saying.
It's never been done.
Yeah.
And I like that, and the insult from the plastic, as
yeah.
they say in Mean Girls,
yeah,
was
from
well written.
Yeah, from Yasmin. Yeah.
Yeah. Is Yasmin? Is that
yeah.
his name? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you know, and I think really that is part of all of that comedy as well. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If your name's Kyler or Moon or Yasmin, you're pretty much going to be put into those categories of some sort of villain or mean girl, right?
Or my cat.
Or your cat. Right. I mean, but it's so like you said before, cliche and then original at the same time that we just love it.
Always works.
Yeah. We're like, Moon. Oh, okay.
I mean, the old John Hughes movies, right? I mean,
right.
all Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, everything.
Yeah.
You make those today, they still work.
Right. And it's kind of, I guess they're following a similar formula.
Because high school's still miserable.
Yeah. It still is miserable. So Johnny teaches Miguel the Cobra strike. And, you know, that's the whole like punching through the bone. Like the guy you really want to punch is on the other side.
Punch through him.
Punch through him.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I just love that from Johnny. It was a really good direction.
Yeah.
From him to be a sensei and do that. I was like, wow, punch the guy behind him.
Well, and you said earlier that you weren't surprised by some of the sloppiness, but that doesn't show any sloppiness in this little scene right here.
He's very selective when it comes to fighting style, when it comes to that.
Yeah.
He's by the book because you can tell. And he's super intense.
Yeah.
He might throw some not sloppy, but some of his slang or you know, jokes. And that's what makes it unique.
Oh, you want me to do 20 push-ups?
My favorite line of the whole episode.
Yeah, like you could. I know. You love it.
That was my favorite part. I don't know why.
Yeah.
He sold that.
Yeah. I mean, it was that in any particular way you want me to wash these windows? And he's like, nah.
Yeah. That was a nice call out to the first.
Yeah.
To the whole series, really. And how he's vastly different.
Yeah, but you like the Knuckles one.
That made me laugh. And I want more of that. I just want that continuously.
Yes.
How like he is just a garbage. It seems like he's a garbage person with a foul mouth. But man, he's that. And this is an old, and I'm sorry to throw this in this little avenue that I'm going to toss in, but there's something called a drunken master, a drunken fool in old westerns or old kung fu films. And it reminds me of that. He's wise and he's knowing, but he's a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And that's such an interesting archetype. And
yes,
that's where they're going with this.
Right. And I think that's why you root for him in so many ways.
Oh, yes.
You know?
It's very human.
Yeah, so human.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did want to talk about the fact that, when Johnny was teaching Miguel that Cobra strike, he was interrupted by a phone call, which reintroduces his son once again, where you're really starting to see his son. Because you saw a picture of
Right.
Robbie on the refrigerator in the episode 1, and then you hear about him from stepdad or step grandpa, where he's like, yeah, you're a deadbeat dad, and that confirms that Johnny is a deadbeat dad. There's a son out there. But then we finally see, a phone call from the principal, and that once again, Johnny has no idea who Molly is,
That's a good line.
Who's Molly?
That was great.
Yeah.
Right when it was coming out of his mouth, I'm like, yes.
Yeah. But you have this next layer of Johnny, deadbeat dad. It's another thing that you're either pulling for him or you're seeing that mess of him,
Right.
But after that phone call, it really messes him up because he just F's it up. He doesn't really do anything. The phone call ends with the principal going, I guess I should call his mom. You have no idea what you're doing, why you're here. Or why I called you.
And then he drops the good luck with that after the initial, that's a big surprise that you couldn't reach her. That makes me want to know what's up with the mom then.
Mm-hmm.
Is she just trash? Is she a mess?
Yeah.
Maybe more of a mess than Johnny is?
Yeah.
Less heart? There's all these things. Maybe he is the better parent, but he never got a shot.
Right.
He made one big mistake, or whatever.
Yeah.
But I like the son. He was cast well. I'd like to see more of him. He seems like a good actor.
Yeah.
It was a nice tease.
Yeah.
It was a nice tease.
What that brought to my mind, though, was after the disappointment of the phone call, he goes back to teaching Miguel, and then you see a lot of violence and rage in his instruction.
Wow. Good. I never put 2 and 2 together on that one.
And that's where you're really seeing, some of the fire of where some of this stuff is coming from.
Correct me if I'm wrong. When he hung up, didn't he already start hitting hard, right? He had already started hitting hard.
Yes.
Because he corrected him before he took the call. And then Miguel started hitting hard. And Johnny's like, yeah, that's it. Do that.
Well,
isn't that right?
He hung up with him, came back to him, and he was hitting, but he's like,
oh, was he doing the weak ones?
He was doing the weak ones.
Okay.
And he's like, what are you doing?
Okay.
And it's like
that makes way more sense.
He just came off of that whole interaction with the phone call, and I feel like that was that whole planting seeds of rage within Miguel. He's like, think of your enemy.
Yep.
Yeah. And then there's all those flashes.
Every failure in his life is the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I want to punch those out.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want to show you what that's like. Yeah. And,
yeah.
And that you're absolutely right. And I think it was a combination of violence and here's my chance to be that mentor, to be that dad to this kid.
Yes. Well, I can't do it here. I'm going to rise to the challenge right here with what's in front of me.
Yep. And use violence.
But again, because these were building blocks that he was taught, it's all he knows. So he plants those seeds of anger and rage because that's the Cobra Kai way that he was taught.
But at the same time, I bet you would attest to this too. If he were raising a kid and he was still a failure, but he were raising a kid, I don't think he'd be a violent nature. I don't think he would be an abusive dad like Kreese probably would be. You know what I mean? I just see him using that as an outlet to be either successful or to kind of exercise the demons.
Yeah.
But he would never do it on... He's still got that heart of gold where he would never use it unless he needed to. Hence why he was like, in the first episode, I'm not going to mess with you kids. Don't mess with me. And then they pushed him.
Pick the wrong guy on the wrong day.
Right. And that was well-deserved. And I think we all agreed.
Well, and because I will always stick up for this hero version of Johnny, I always go back to even the Karate Kid and, the handing over the trophy or other scenes that you see where he was provoked. So, yeah, I totally agree with that. One thing we do want to talk about is the dinner at the LaRussos with Kyler, because that shows more of who Kyler is. Or what he's lack of. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The one-dimensional, fish sticks are dope.
Oh, my God.
That
was something.
It was like everybody was disappointed and then laughing at the same time, right?
Yeah, and you kind of hoped at least, you knew he was going to be a jerk, but you hoped there was a little something there because it kind of didn't make me lose respect for Daniel's daughter. But I'm like, come on, you're smarter than that.
Yeah.
And I could see you getting with a jerk, but not this empty jerk.
Right.
You know? And it was like, wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that says anything about her. I'm sure that's her first foray into popularity, and especially popular boys.
Right.
And I'm sure there'll be more.
Yeah.
But that was not a good start.
And your hope is when you see that sort of thing is that it won't last long.
Right.
Yeah.
How can it last long? If you're that bright and you've been raised this well, this can't last long.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
So I'm very curious because of who I know you to be, Mike.
Uh-huh.
What did you think of Daniel's attempt to connect with Kyler by asking him, like, you know, I had a mentor and he was from Okinawa. Where are your parents from? You know?
Yeah. So first of all, when he started bringing at him, he's like, sushi and where are your parents from? I looked at that like, man, he's kind of generalizing race.
Right. I'm like, my note was racist.
Right.
You know?
And I'm sorry. But I'm like, but Jersey. So
right.
It's a lot of generalizations from Jersey.
Right.
Like, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Oh, at least the last generation, if not many before, generalize every race.
Right.
And that's just the way it is in Jersey. And and now we're, you know, our generation, your and I generation, we know better. Even if we were raised with a tad of that, we know better. But you look at Daniel, you're like, I'm a little surprised, Daniel.
Yeah.
I mean, you should be past that.
Yeah.
You're not that old. You're not that far from modern times.
Yeah.
You know, you really should. No one's going to be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But it is good that Kyler's too dumb to realize it.
Right. Yeah.
know?
There you go. Nobody was offended.
No, he's like, dude, I don't like sushi.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't connect.
Irvine, I think.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
That brings me back. I mean, we skipped over this, but in the beginning, when Johnny and Miguel have their first official lesson, that's when Johnny grabs his Miguel's inhaler, because he really hit him in the chest hard, and he's like, you know, I'm not worried about your made up, you know, asthma or peanut allergy or whatever. And you know, we just love it, and it's just all hilarious, right?
At the same time, you're like, buddy, yeah,
right,
like,
right.
You're like, what's gonna happen? Not that it's apparent in me, probably, you know, and I wouldn't have cared before, but it's apparent in me going, but what if he needs that inhaler?
But it's such a dichotomy of the thinking in the 80s.
Yep.
And our present day thinking.
Totally.
You know? And then the flip side of that was when, I don't even remember what Johnny said, but Miguel goes, don't you think you're doing a lot of genderizing?
Yes.
And it's all funny. It's just a buffet of funny at that point, because it's just so overt, but we're enjoying all of it.
Yeah. And again, that throwing the inhaler and breaking it against the wall and saying you're made up, that again, going back to that Billy Bob Thornton style, that's totally, I'm like, gosh, keep that coming.
Yeah.
Because I can't get enough. I just can't.
Yeah.
You could just fill the whole show with jokes like that. And maybe critically it's not going to do great. I'll like it.
Yes. Yes. It's just that's another level of entertainment that keeps me going for sure.
Absolutely. You don't see it enough.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So the last scene in the show is when Daniel goes to Cobra Kai, because this is after he's talked to Kyler and has picked up on the fact that, you know, Kyler had a fight with an adult outside of a dojo that is new near a strip mall. So
and Kyler lied.
Right.
Didn't tell the whole truth.
Didn't tell the whole truth.
Right.
But Daniel pieces together that this is Johnny. So he heads over to Cobra Kai to confront him. And he walks in the door, and this is the point where it's end of the night. Miguel's in the back scrubbing the toilets on his knees. And they have another little face-off, you know? And this is where we're starting to see, you know, who's the villain here?
I'm going to bring something up that I just realized that I don't know if you realized or not about that scene, and it's a big thing. And it's about the realization factor of facts and what actually occurred. Daniel walks in, and he does spout off what he heard. And Johnny sort of defends himself. He's like, dude, you weren't there, kind of.
Yeah.
Here's the interesting thing. Why, of all things, would Miguel have come out of the back yelling, "You want me to?" And he pulls the headphone out of his ear.
I never noticed that.
Because he didn't hear what Daniel said, or else he would have came to Johnny's defense and said he was saving me. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
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 It just hit me.
Because Miguel said that when the cops came and pepper sprayed him, you know?
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was such a good scene.
Yeah.
But that makes perfect sense. Because I was just thinking to myself while you were, reiterating what occurred, I was thinking, why did Miguel come to his defense? And I was like, he was close enough. And I'm like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And why would it be so obvious? He pulled it out. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like,
yeah. He had no clue what was occurring. No. Right. Yeah. Do you have any other insights to that sparring or that
meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how that ended. Because I even like how confident Johnny was. Like, come on.
Yeah.
That was great. And
what did he say? He said something like,
"I'm right here."
I'm right here. Yeah.
Or, come on, or I'm right here.
Yeah.
And Daniel was like, we're not done here.
Yeah. Oh, it was the you and me. This we're not done here. It's the Godfather Sopranos.
Right.
Yeah.
Very Italian.
Yeah.
Over dramatic.
Yeah.
And Johnny's just like, okay, dude.
Yeah.
You want to fight or not? That's what I like.
Mm-hmm.
I like Daniel's this grandiose. Yeah. I'm the good guy. Let me be dramatic about this. And really, Johnny's like, where are the cameras, dude? It's you and me. Do you want to just fight right now? Because I'm busy.
Yeah.
Like, he's just, he's based in reality. Daniel's on a different planet, kind of because of what's happened.
Yeah.
Over the years.
Well, it's funny you say that because I think for so long I've been saying that Johnny's not based in reality because he's stuck in the 80s, because he was driving an 80s Firebird, because he hung his arm out the window thinking that he was going to get a girl by looking at her.
That's fair.
And all that. But that's a different facet of reality, or how he views himself to be.
Which reality would you rather live in? Would you rather live in a reality where you know who you are and where you're stuck, but you like reliving, or where you forget who you were, but your life's so much better?
Yeah.
But you're not really grounded in that same reality.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question, obviously I'd rather just be who I think I am.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's bottom of the barrel.
Right. But I think that, every moment we're seeing growth from Johnny. And so when we see that he's like stuck in his high school world, you're seeing that he doesn't want to be there. No. He just doesn't know how to not be there.
And without that, there would be no drive to get him to where those memories is what's fueling him for different reasons along the way.
Yeah. So, it's not really that he's happy being stuck there. No. It's just funny to us.
Oh, I didn't say it was happy. And I agree with you. I would take bottom of the barrel any day if I knew who I was. Because watching Daniel is sad.
It's painful.
It's painful.
Yeah.
It's really like I want to take a shower, and it's not like gross, but it's like, oh God, how can you be like this?
Yeah, for me, it's more about like shaking shoulders, like kind of a wake up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just feel gross though with the whole how fake and gleamy he is and shiny. He just feels very shiny.
Yeah, but isn't that like part of like the it's not necessarily him, it's the world he's surrounded himself in.
Right. Because he actually is not as depressing. He was never as depressing as Johnny is, but he was always that. He was always blue collar. He knew who he was. None of that stuff made a difference to him. Mm-hmm. In every film. Yeah. He never felt like that mattered. Yeah. And now that's gone. Yeah. At least for now. So ends episode 2. Do you have any speculations? Once there's that you and me, we're not done. I do. And this isn't just based on the trailer. Even though you do catch this in the trailer. Well, and interesting, I want to point out the trailer, because I have seen everything. The trailer, that's more of like that's a long trailer of a lot of seasons. So you're seeing a lot of peak. Episodes. Yeah. But I did get, without the trailer, you do get a feeling that maybe Miguel's not the only one who's going to come to him. He's going to have more than one student eventually. Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting what students we get, and how that changes not only their lives and their surroundings, but the people in their lives. Mm-hmm. That's going to be such a cool dynamic. Yes. From so many different angles. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
So who's hottest this episode? Johnny?
No doubt.
Tell me why.
Every day. Johnny just has that I aged well look. Kept his hair. Still got the blonde, whether he colors it or not. He's got the scruff. And he's real, and he's funny, and he's charming. And I got to tell you, he impresses the hell out of me from an acting standpoint.
Oh, my gosh. Yes.
I mean, maybe he's done straight to, I don't know. I haven't looked at his filmography on IMDb lately, but he couldn't have done much over the years.
Yeah.
I know he did one music video that was, that revolved around the Karate Kid years later. But for this kind of size role, and where he's the lead now, even though Machio's name is the first, which I get, but whatever. He is so impressive, and he's very charming and charismatic, and he's kind of badass too. He's still got it.
Yeah.
I mean, watch him kick butt that first episode was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
How about you?
So, after all of our talking, I feel like I was originally putting my vote in for Daniel, and it was because I really bought into that what's it called? I can't think of the word where it's the little I can't think of the word where you have the music bed and you're showing the different scenes.
The montage.
The montage. Yeah, I bought into the montage of Daniel's charmed life. I just loved his smile. I loved how he enjoyed his life. I loved it. I loved it all. And I loved Dean Martin, even though I couldn't remember it was Dean Martin. All of
Sammy
it.
Davis Jr.
Yeah.
But then you love the shallow side of things.
I think I just loved the enjoyment that he was having with all of it.
Okay, good point.
I love, because it really was, he was, shaking hands and looking at the car under the hood, he was doing his little job. I mean, I don't think all of it was shallow.
But I think it was genuine.
Yeah, he's built his little life.
And maybe you're like, you deserve that.
Yeah, because I think as fans of the Karate Kid, we wanted to see what happened.
Sure.
And so we're like, oh, that's what happened. That's quaint. That's cute.
Yeah.
And maybe part of it's just because
there's nothing quaint about it. Let's be honest.
You don't think
that's not a quaint life. My life is
okay.
quaint.
Okay, quaint's a bad word to
describe. That's grand.
Grand, right? Yeah, sweet.
Sweet, sure.
Okay, so, but you've really swayed me, in our conversation, and I've done so much championing for Johnny Lawrence, William Zabka. So far, I feel bad giving him the who's hotter point, but I'm going to have to go for it because I see it. I see it all in this episode.
And I'm not saying that the rest of the season, Daniel might flip it on its head.
But I like the smirk at the end. He's looking at him, the car lights shine on him, and he's
just got
like,
that
he's like, come on. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to shock you with your next question.
Okay. So who won? Who won the episode?
Daniel.
Why did Daniel win the episode?
I'll tell you. He's got the upper hand in everything. If you think about it from a context perspective, I will give that Johnny, and I want Johnny to win. I'm rooting for Johnny. I'm Team Johnny here. Johnny struggled through that episode, right? He struggled getting that place up and running. All the news that he had. Yes, he found a purpose. Took that check out of the trash. Really feel good for him. But he's got a long, tall ladder to climb to get to where he can feel just as good about himself as Daniel does right now, or at least we think Daniel does right now about himself, and be a formidable opponent from not only a physical perspective, but from a me perspective. Like, I feel good about myself. Mm-hmm. And all that you have, I don't even care. I've got this little bit over here. I've got this class of students. And I'm good, man. You probably want what I got. But it's going to take a little bit. So with that, Johnny, or as much problems Daniel has with his kids and whatever, look what he did to Johnny in the dealership. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll give it to you for free. Mm-hmm. So patronizing, yet helpful.
Yeah, it was pity.
I mean, he's got so much upper hand.
Yeah. So he won. He won episode 2.
He won episode 2.
Yeah. I'm going to have to agree with you, but it was more because of his fathering. You know, even the thinking back to, you know, the pining for the way things were, and then sitting down with his daughter, extending olive branches, really trying to meet her halfway with these new kids. So that's where I'm going to give him a dojo point. So we've got 2 points for Daniel this episode and 0 points for Johnny.
And I'm sorry I didn't touch on the fatherly stuff, and that I totally agree. It just comes so natural.
Yeah.
When he does it.
Yeah. And the heart. Yeah.
You really believe it.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. So that ends this episode. I have no official and fun way to end it, so we're just going to say goodbye. But thank you so much, Mike, for hanging with me, all of your great insights. It was wonderful to talk with you.
It was such a pleasure that you had me, and I'm thankful. Thank you so much. I'd love to come back to something else later on.
Yes.
So it was a lot
for
of fun.
sure.
Thank
for
you.
sure. Thanks, guys, for listening.